Hi, everybody. I'm Jack Canfield, and welcome to today's show. My guest today is Kelly McMiniman, who for the past decade has helped over 100 happy clients find an easier way to get and stay organized for good. She's also the co-author of Organize Your Way, Simple Strategies for Every Personality. By the way, this is a really good book. I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited about having you as a guest today, Kelly. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks so much. That's such a great introduction.
Well, it's a great book. And I have to say, I love it because my wife and I, as I read your book, are absolutely the total opposites of each other. I start to understand why that's the case in terms of how we organize, or I thought she didn't, but actually she did. So it's brought greater peace into our family, for which I'm grateful. But let's go back to the beginning. If I remember correctly, you started out in the world of hedge funds. Yes. How did you get started in the field of organizing?
My sister, who was my polar opposite, we are kind of the Oscar and Felix of the organizing world. And I tried for the better part of my life to try to get her to organize my way, or what I thought was the only way to organize. And I thought she'd be happier, less stressed, more productive if I could just get her to be like me. And finally, she kind of spoke up and was like, maybe I need a different way. Maybe I'm not a failure. And we had this hunch, because we were kind of steeped in personality theory growing up because of our mom, that maybe different personalities, different people needed different systems to be and stay organized. And we started coming up with systems for her. Then we started doing it for clients. We got trained as Myers-Briggs practitioners and gave it to our clients. And we kind of found that basically there's 4 overarching personality types: classic, funds, organics, and smarts. And from there, we came up with this book that cataloged essentially everything we tell our clients and how to help them.
And why do you feel organizing is so important? I mean, a lot of people obviously are disorganized. We've all seen shows that you go, oh my God, can people live like that? But why do you, I mean, in that case, you go, yeah, you got to clean up a little bit. But why do you feel organizing is so important? How does it help people to be more organized?
Well, I think it really is one of the underpinnings of success in life. If you can find things, which is what organization is about. It's about retrieval, not necessarily how it looks, because messy organized isn't necessarily an oxymoron. But that's really it at its core, because if you can find things when you need them, whether it's a link to a meeting in your computer or it's a physical document, you're not going to be stressing out. You're not going to miss an airplane, those kind of things. And that's why it's so important. It's also why it's so important to build systems that work with who you are rather than who you want to be, because then it's easier to remember where something might be, remember where you put it, etc. But also, it's what you started talking about. It also creates a lot of conflict at home and in the offices when different types come together. So really what we found with our clients and what's in our book, we have a whole chapter dedicated to it, is how to find compromises between the different organizing styles, because that's really important, because we don't need that extra conflict. It doesn't need to be that way.
Can you give me an example of like maybe a couple you worked with where they were 2 different organizing styles and what the solution was to help them both be winners?
Yeah. One of my favorites is it was an organic structure, and she married a classic structure. And the organic, before he moved in, she had this system where she would take the mail and drop it on her dining room table, which is a place you pass by all the time. And she also had an agenda where she did her bills once a month, and it was a to-do item. But part of the system was her seeing the pile of bills get bigger and bigger and bigger. And that was like a visual reminder to get it done. So it was kind of a 2-part system. And when he moved in, he's like, why is there mail on our table? And he would hide it away, which is what classics, detail-oriented organizing styles really like to do. And one month she totally forgot to do the bills, and because her pile wasn't there, her visual reminder was he'd kind of broken part of her system. And what we came up with was a compromise for a place where she would still be passing by it. So it was like on a wall along her route, so to speak, her pathway in the door. And it was one of those acrylic wall folders that you might see in a doctor's office with magazines. And that was kind of the compromise, because it had a specific spot that wasn't a dining room table, which is technically not where male should live. So it was hidden away enough for him. And for her, she could still visually see it, and she still had her, 2-part system to, handle the mail and bills. So those are the kind of compromise you're looking for between types.
Yeah, one thing I walked away from your book with was because we when our mail comes in, we put it on the dining room table, but it's kind of like that's the mail room.
Yeah.
But then it gets divided up. I take stuff to my office. Inga gets her stuff. I put it by her computer, and then we have a live-in house guest. Her stuff goes on the counter in the kitchen because she goes there every day and helps cook. She picks it up. But I ended up getting 3 in baskets and putting it in the kitchen. And now each person has, so you know where it is. You have to see it because we all go into the kitchen, and it's no longer on the dining room table, which I like to be clear as well. So simple little thing, but it makes a big difference at some level because I like clean spaces, you know, and my wife feels like if it's not a lot of stuff around, it's not lived in. So, it has this differing thing, but it's good. I appreciate that. So is there a common belief that you've discovered about organizing that isn't true for most people?
Yeah. Mainly it's that almost half the personalities, organizing styles in the world are called classics. And we are kind of the traditional organizers. And we think it's not our way or the highway, but close to it, that there's one right way to organize. And really what I tell clients and in our book, we preach is that there's one right way for you. So, you know, what works for you might be very different than what works for your wife. And so you really need to find what works for you. And so if you go to our website, PixiesDidIt.com, or in our book, there's a quiz and you figure out who you are. And then you kind of accept who you are, your strengths, your weaknesses, and you work with them rather than fighting them. And, you know, the reason we say that is because when you get home, you're tired. So it's kind of hard to be somebody you're not. And so we really try to recommend people work with who they are so you can find that one right way for you. And really, if you have an unconventional system, embrace it and run with it. Once I saw Richard Branson on CNBC and he had something written on the back of his hand. And at the end of the segment, the anchors were like, do you have something written on the back of your hand? And even I was kind of incredulous because it's something my sister, my opposite, does, but she really can't forget something. And I remember he looked at his hand, was surprised it was still there, said, oh, I must not have scrubbed it off very hard. But my backup system, when I don't have my notebook and pen, when I'm out and about and somebody has a great idea, I didn't have my notebook and pen and my backup system's to write it on my hand. And the anchor's like, why didn't you make cocktail napkin? That's what everybody uses. And he said, I would lose a cocktail napkin. I didn't smile. It was just clearly, he knew who he was. He knew what his limits were. And he likes to remember really good ideas. And I think it's obviously working for him. So I like that example because that's unconventional, but he owns it and it works for him. And anyone can do that. If you have a system, if it works for you, use it, own it. Don't be bashful.
Now I have a question for you because I didn't read your whole book. I read most of it. I didn't read the part. So I wonder, this is a big issue for a lot of people and when they get in fights about the children's room, children's toys, putting them away, not putting them away. One person, you're a control freak. The other person, let the kids be who they are, and it's a mess. They need to learn discipline. How do you advise people about that?
Well, you want to make it easy to put away. Usually a lot of things with kids stuff is just isn't enough room. And so, when I'm going into a space, I'm usually end up buying extra bookshelves. You really just want a ton of space. And actually, that's a lot of problem that people have throughout their home is just not having enough space for the amount of stuff they have. That's why, organizers are always telling you to declutter because that's half the problem. Because if you have space, then you have room to put things away easily. Kids, a lot of times we create systems that are like, oh, you got to put it in the basket, then the basket goes on the shelf, and that's all these extra steps. And that's really hard for a kid, no matter what their personality ends up being. It's even hard for some adults. So we always try to make every system we do as close to one step as possible. So instead of a bin for cars, you want to be able to just put the cars straight on there, or with clothes, you want to make it easy, like having tons of hooks at eye level for kids, because then it's just hanging up their clothes. I mean, folding clothes, that's hard for adults to do. So it's really hard for kids, who aren't as nimble yet. So, really it's about figuring out, have you made it kind of tough for kids and trying to make it simpler? And then you can kind of do that for adults too, who have trouble keeping things as tight as you want. Hooks, one step, remove the lid on the hamper if they're putting clothes on top of a hamper. These simple little strategies really go a long way. I
found that for me, hooks were amazing. I got hooks on the back or inside of every door in my house now, and hanging up a towel, hanging up the bathrobe, hanging up anything, ties, belt that I don't want to wear tomorrow
Yep.
or whatever. Just there's a space for everything. Like you're saying, more space to put it.
Mm-hmm.
What's one piece of advice you'd give everybody? Is there like one overarching thing that you might say?
Yes. I mean, beyond my unconventional one and owning it, it really is one step organizing it. And that is trying to accept that the person in your life, if that person's you or your roommate or your spouse, accepting that 5-step processes are really hard at the end of the day or even at the beginning of the day. And so if somebody can't hang their coat up in the front hall closet on a hanger, that's because it's like a 6-step process. And instead of just getting annoyed or, having all these fights about these kind of things, it's like, you just need more hooks. You can compromise, have it on inside of the closet, or it's even better if it's outside. You really want to make everything as close to one step as possible. And, when I am in someone's home and I'm trying to assist them and seeing if it works, I'm always asking myself, is there a step I can remove, that they'll still be happy with the end result, how it looks? And everybody else can do that at home. And, it's those simple things when you're setting up systems, like, is this easy? When you decant cereal into another bin every month, that's hard. Sometimes it's just okay to have a box, so keep it simple. It's kind of the old KISS principle. I would say you really should be applied at home, and it isn't often enough.
That's way cool. Way cool. Well, I found your book fascinating. My wife's really glad that I found your book.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Happy reading and getting along even better.
Thank you. If people want to get a hold of your book, where do they go?
They can go to our website, PixiesDidIt.com, or Amazon, Barnes & Noble. And on our website, you can take our quiz to figure out who you are. You can hire us. We do virtual consults and coaching, as well as in person in Cleveland and New York. And so we are full service, and we love helping people make life easier.
Very good. Well, you've already made my life and my wife's life easier with your book. And so I encourage you to check out the book. And also, if you want to have professional help, which I think makes it a lot easier, PixiesDidIt.com. Take that test, find out who you are, and use the book to implement it. So thank you very much for joining us, Kelly. Appreciate it very much. Good luck with your work. I think it's important, going to create a lot of peace in the world, as well as...
That's one of our goals. Thank you, Jack. This has been great.
Thank you very much. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining us this week. We really appreciate it. My purpose is to inspire you to have a better life and bring on guests that can help you make your life easier, more productive, happier. And today we've given you a good example of how that works with Kelly and her work. And come in, join us next week. We'll have another guest. And until then, stay healthy, stay safe, and get organized.